Hi everyone, it's Rax, bringing you another Diablo 4 video. I just played the server slam for 42 hours. I got every class to 20. I did 10 full campaign clears, 2 on each class, respecking all the time. I killed Ashava 10 times. I want to provide a little bit of feedback on what I saw from the beta going into launch, and let's just jump straight into it. So the server slam itself, the entire purpose of it was not to have a queue or a queue. I never had one. I could log in instantly, and I pretty much never got DC'd. It was very good. There seemed to be fewer bugs. Not that there weren't bugs. There's plenty of bugs. There were fewer bugs. They're fixing things. It's nice. The level 20 didn't feel good. We were 25 before, and then we're level 20 after. If they do events like this in the future, which they probably won't, but if they do, can we do the level 20 first, then the 25 later? Everybody just felt kind of crippled. I heard that feedback 1,000 times. Ashava was better with the more spawn times. It was a nice challenge for... I didn't like the reward, but oh well, you get a reward, whatever. It was great that you can't change instances anymore to get additional loot. So if you change instances to get multiple kills, I killed Ashava 4 times one time in a 15-minute period. It's just to help your friends. I think that's a good structure for it. Dungeons, they now auto reset. It does work, but I still miss the button. I miss just pour it out, reset the dungeon, and go back in. I would love it if they would actually bring back that button. Corpse farming. So there was a new strategy here, which may or may not be a problem going forward into the end game. If you want to, you can click this link. The document will be in the description below. You can watch this video if you want. It's only 7 minutes long. Shows you how to get 25 legendaries an hour when otherwise you couldn't get hardly any at all, no matter what you did. I guess the second best strategy was farming the little obols to gamble. But anyway, it's essentially what you used to do in Diablo 3, when you would go to a high-end zone and just break pots and open chests and click on corpses to find really good loot. So a couple of basic things here. Blizzard should make sure that killing is better than looting 99% of the time. But if you get to a really rare chest or something that has a random location or something that's very difficult to reach, then that's fine to have like a treasure chest or a corpse be super valuable. But all these corpses just laying out in the field, which reward way better loot than actually killing the elites 10 levels higher than you, that makes absolutely no sense. Then stronghold resetting. This might not be a problem in the end game, but I'm pointing it out anyway, just as a thought experiment. You could clear 99% of the stronghold, including killing the final boss, and then reset your game, log out and log back in, and you could do it over again. This is a way to farm very high-level items. This might not matter unless there's like a level 100 stronghold with like godly items. If people do 99% of it and then reset it, that might be like a meta for farming it, and you're screwed if you completed it. Something to keep in mind for the future. So now let's talk about the changes that they told us that they made and how they actually went in practice. So for whenever you have to kill 100% of monsters, then they're just going to have the remaining monsters chase after you. This went exactly how I thought it would. Sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. Sometimes the monsters ran up to you and you killed them, and sometimes the last stragglers just still sat in the corner. The fix that I would like a lot more that they can implement with this is just to not require you to kill all of the monsters. Even if you required us to kill 97% or 95%, that would be fine. This is a suggestion that a lot of other pro players have suggested. It's a feature that's used in a lot of other games, like Diablo 3, for example. You don't kill every monster in a Greater Rift, you kill most of them, and then you complete it. I would prefer that strongly over what they currently have. The Ashava rewards requiring you to be level 20. Don't have a problem with this, but many people didn't get their Ashava kill because there were too many low-level players at the boss. They either were unaware that they can't help and that they couldn't earn the reward, or they were just straight up griefing you. I killed Ashava 10 different times. There were 9 spawns, but I probably killed her even more than 10. I don't know. But every time, no matter what group I was in, there was always at least one very low person who couldn't contribute that just chain died. I would really love if they would implement some kind of minimum level. It doesn't have to be super strict. Maybe a 20 can fight a 25 boss, but there's no reason to have anybody who's level 15 or lower ever at Ashava. You can't fight her. Can't contribute. You're just leeching and you're dying. I would really wish they would implement some kind of restriction here. They restructured the dungeons to avoid backtracking. This did help. It was better. Some of the dungeons were helped more than others. There was still definitely backtracking. The thing that I think they should change is you should be able to carry multiple dungeon objective objects at a time. If you have to grab 2 stones, if you run to stone 1 and then stone 2, let us pick up both of them. I don't know why we can't. Another thing is they removed some of the timers on some of the objectives, but some of them are still there. I wish they would remove the timers on them just entirely for all the objectives or turn them way down. The aspect required level change. This used to be a way to turn very high level items into a low item. They fixed this, so that was good. The drop rates. Drop rates previously were inflated. Now we saw the normal drop rates. In general, I thought they were way, way better. When you found a legendary, it was a big event and it made you feel really good. I think these drop rates are significantly better, but there are some exceptions. Treasure goblins, for example, dropped literally nothing. I don't know what happened, but whatever they did to nerf treasure goblins, I don't know if it's just from the drop rate changes. They're absolutely garbage now. So I think treasure goblins need a fairly large buff. The silent chests that you see locked there that I think you go buy a key for, the whispering keys, they're also terrible. Need to fix those. And then they fixed binding scroll wheel to force move, and that's much better now. If you disable zoom, then you can bind it, so players are happy. Let's talk about the classes now. We only got to play to 20. I get it. A lot of the changes that they made are probably designed for the end game. Fine. But Diablo 4 can't be a game that becomes fun 30 hours into playing it. It needs to be fun pretty much immediately. So this is my experience playing the early game of all classes, and between the previous testing phases and the beta and this, I mean, played 42 out of 48 hours. So I played it a lot. For the early game, lunging strike is the thing that kind of saves barbs. It's a gap closer, and it's not just for the movement. It also gives you more reliable fury generation. I don't know what we would do pretty much without lunging strike, and I have to change all the guides early game to say to take lunging strike so you can actually play. So one of the major problems with Barb is early game weapon drops. This actually happened to me. So I spec'd full Rend. Rend requires a slashing weapon. I didn't find another slashing weapon until I was 10. I had to fight a boss at level 9 with my starter two-hander slashing weapon. It was like I was fighting Ragnaros in Molten Core. It was so difficult. So all this verbiage here is just saying it would be nice if like some of the early game quests would at least give you a decent blue drop, so you aren't hitting with literally a weapon that does 1 damage, and that would already go a long way. And another thing is this is kind of a unique problem for barbs, because barbs have skills that require a certain weapon, and you're picking up 4 different kinds of weapons. So if I spec Rend and I need a two-handed sword or slashing weapon, and I just don't get one in my first 3 weapon drops, I'm screwed, and it essentially forces me to respec. And the only skill that I thought was behind early game was maybe double swing. Didn't see really anybody playing it. Nobody's talking about it. That would be a skill to look at. The nerf shouts, initially I was very upset with it. I thought it was going to be terrible. But actually, even after the nerfs, the shouts still proved very valuable. So, you know, maybe, as I put it here, I hate to admit it, but maybe it was a good change. Druid. So similar to before, resource generation is a big issue. Really, the only way to solve that is to take wind shear and pull the whole room and wind shear through the whole enemies. Then you can get some pretty good spirit generation. They nerfed landslide, and there doesn't seem to be a standout skill early in the game. Probably the best one is tornado, because tornado does a lot of damage but has terrible pathing. Shred feels horrible. Like that, I think needs a big buff early game. Pulverize is good for AoE, but can't kill bosses. Landslide doesn't do any AoE, and Lightning Storm got buffed, and it's better, but you have this, like, it has very weird targeting, and you have to channel it in a weird way. It feels very weird to go into a room, hold down, summon a Lightning Storm, stand still, and hope that it targets the targets that you were hoping it would hit. I just would like to see more of the power on Druid put into their actual skills than waiting for legendary items. When you get the legendary items, the Druids come online and they really start blasting. So maybe they're going to be godly in the endgame, but still a similar experience here. The buff companions do feel stronger, but it's their active abilities that feel stronger. The passive pets are still quite bad. Necro, the early game experience, they're still extremely strong except for the skellies. Their main issue is mobility. You just walk around. Is there any plan to give us a movement ability in combat? And if they do add it, we would love to see it earlier in the game. Just the Necros are just so slow as a class. The buffed Bloodlance, tried it. Doesn't seem great. Was probably the worst skill before. Still doesn't seem great. Maybe it'll be good in the end game. Doesn't feel good in the early game. The nerf Bone Splinters, these are still really strong. So after the nerf, so it's probably a good nerf. So here's what happened. So I made a guide and, okay, after the last beta, Blizzard said they were going to nerf the survivability of the skellies. So we were theory crafting a build and we're like, well, how bad could it be? We'll take the passives that buff the skellies' survivability and they'll be okay. Wrong. The skellies die to even trash. Like, they were so terrible, it was unbelievable. So Blizzard recognized that, that's fine, and then they hotfixed it, and they made it better. So then I did a full playthrough with the hotfix skellies. So I still come to the conclusion after the hotfix that they're still too squishy. They're helpful, but I don't feel like the commander of the undead. I feel like a babysitter. They're dying all the time. And whenever you have extra corpses, when I summon a new skelly, when I have max skellies out already, I don't know why it doesn't replace my most hurt skelly with a fresh one. That's how I've seen it done in other games. And instead, it consumes the corpse, and I'm doomed to wait until they die to refresh them. Now, there is like a healing that I was just made aware of. I didn't even realize it. It's so weak. That it heals, like if you consume a corpse with max skellies, it heals 10% of their life over 5 seconds. That is nothing. So I don't know what the solution here is, but I would say post hotfix, it's still not enough. And I still think that the skeletons felt bad to the point where I would sacrifice them and not use them. And on bosses, they're just completely doomed. They just die. They essentially can't use them for bosses, and that's kind of where you want them the most. Maybe with full passives and certain legendary powers, they live forever, but again, it can't be fun 30 hours in. Summoner Necro is not something that I would play currently. The Rogue early game experience, I haven't heard too many people talk about this, but I played Rogue through twice, and I kind of feel resource starved even on Rogue as well. When you get Shadow Imbue with consuming shadows and Inner Sight, it's a lot better, but that's not for a while. The reason why I think Rogue still feels okay is because their mobility is so high. Another thing that I would say in general is melee rogues seem to play better than ranged rogues from a damage perspective. So again, I'd like to see a little bit more resource generation or reduced costs early game, and I'd like to see ranged rogues buffed a little bit. Sorcerer. The early game experience is still real strong. You get teleport really early. Arc Lash is maybe the best generator in the game. Chain Lightning, even post-nerf, is godly. So it's really good. Their Ice build is good too. Ice Shards is very strong. Works very well. Frozen Orbs felt pretty underwhelming, but Ice Shards is good. And Fire seems to be behind in the early game. Maybe it's godly in the end game with Firewall or Fireball. Fine. But it doesn't feel good early game. The nerf Chain Lightning, it still plows. I just destroyed the game with Chain Lightning anyway, so I guess the nerf was warranted. The nerf to Hydra might have been a little bit too severe. Now it's pretty underwhelming. It has a little bit of value because it's passive DPS, but it's essentially just a support skill now. It like applies burning for another source of burning for your firewall skill. So you might have over nerfed Hydra here. It's a lot weaker now. And the nerfed Ice Blades, this needed to be nerfed. It used to be completely busted. I was almost certain they were going to fix it, and they did, so thank you. Let's very quickly rocket through some of these remaining issues. Unlocking the Occultist. If you don't have a dungeon where you can unlock a legendary aspect in the Codex of Power, you can't use an Occultist on an alt until you're level 20. A lot to say. The fix is when you unlock the Occultist on any character, unlock it for every character. That's the fix. Selling aspects versus legendaries. You get a legendary item that's vendors for 10k. You pay 15k to turn it into an aspect, and then you vendor that for 40k. So you made an extra 15k just by doing one tiny extra step. Got to fix this. There is no way that this is the intended design. A lot of things that we mentioned earlier, crowd controls from monsters are still ridiculous. I can't tell you how many times I was 100 0'd in different crowd controls. It's just insane. I'd like to see, need to see all reroll options at the enchanter. There's some issues with controllers. I'd love to get the dungeon reset button back, but if not, can we at least see a timer for when it's going to reset? Crackling energy is spent on environmental objects. Let us TP to our teammates without going to town. This is like a pain point for a lot of people. If you get a legendary and you want the transmog of the legendary that you found, you have to salvage it. If you extract the legendary power, you don't get it. If you vendor it, you don't get it either. So I don't know why you have to salvage it specifically, especially since legendaries aren't tradable. So show the completed quests in a journal, give us a way to ping a location for our teammates, give us a separate gem tab, make at least more visible on the minimap, let us adjust the UI, let us compare a linked item to our current items, increase the pickup radius. The pickup radius for gold is so small. You literally have to run right over it to pick it up. I wish it was a little bigger. That's what she said. Add a keybind to drop items, add an auto walk keybind, add a keybind to hover over an item's stats on the ground like in D3. DPS dummy, this would be great. Test our DPS. Vendor all button would be great. DPS meters, okay, bad people, casual people don't like it. It can be an individual report only if you want, only reporting your DPS, whatever. Some people hate DPS meters, some people can't live without them. I would prefer that you add them. Health and resource numbers on the UI, add a map overlay. They said that they're not going to do it. Everyone cried. Maybe they'll do it now. Loot filters would be nice. Add a stash search. Add a stash in every town, outpost, village. A looking for group feature. People were looking for, how do I make a group for Ashava? I don't know. How do I make a group to run some dungeons? I don't know. This would be important. WASD movement, they said they're not going to add it. Well, let's just keep asking for it. Maybe they'll add it. I won't use it, but it's still a good way to move. And we already had this one, didn't we? Adjustable UI, that's already number 14, so let's delete that one. Anyway, that's my feedback, guys. That's how I felt the Server Slam went. This link will be down below. What did you think of the Server Slam? Does it make you more or less excited for Diablo 4 in a few weeks? Every stream leading up to Diablo 4, I'm going to be theory crafting different leveling and endgame builds for all the classes. So if you want to come, stop by and check out whatever we're working on that day. Hopefully we can figure out, with all the time that we played and all the patches and all the theory crafting, we should be able to get it pretty right, at least for leveling. And then going to play the new Zelda game, and that'll pretty much take us to Diablo 4. I'm very excited. Thanks for watching, guys, and many more Diablo 4 videos are coming. Thank you.